All right, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the AARP Local Chapter 4870 meeting. We're going to be recording the meeting as well. We're going to go ahead and follow that up right afterwards with the recording of the candidate forum. So please stay tuned.
So I'm gonna call the night before.
And officially welcome to Congress Heights Senior Wellness Center. We're located at 3500 Congress King Jr. Avenue in Southeast, the Great Ward 8. And again, we're going to be starting the local chapter 4870 AARP meeting, and that will be followed by the at-large candidate forum. DC residents, feel free to come and check us out. These Senior Wellness Center memberships are free to DC residents 60 and over.
Hey, Kermit,
Look forward to seeing you.
if she getting a roast beef, hey, yeah, get a roast beef for if Connie's not here. Thank you, buddy.
I'm gonna put this over here, meeting part, and I'll switch it. You're a star. You're a star.
She would give you now.
I wouldn't know anything about
Oh wow, thank you. They don't have one. They don't have no. Oh, they don't have no. Oh, they don't have no. Yeah, thank
I think what has happened to usually they have national. So I guess maybe they stuff.
yeah, I say yeah. I know I ain't making my life today. I know that's what I because I'm almost functioning. And I don't know where and every day I know I'm going to look for his last one. But I didn't but he didn't come. Yeah. If not, one thing is okay. And I left my and I ain't have a one that's your tail so that's
You gonna burn it in house?
yeah, that was a beautiful picture of her.
Yeah. So in terms of your reflection,
Oh, yeah.
I can see her ideas yet. Oh, okay. That's why they take
How you doing? All right, see you in a little while. I know you from the AARP chapter. From the AARP.
No, I never.
Never did, but I think you somewhere then. Yeah, coming in. So I think you somewhere you come to the AAC meeting.
okay, meeting again now.
Yeah. Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
So,
Oh, how are you?
anyway, yes, that's what we do.
Don't it look like we want to do? What's up? How you doing? Maria Powell, and I know you, and I haven't changed. Yes, you may. Okay. Okay. I know that's that is going. Give me your $15.
Yeah, you can throw it again, there's no 85.
You say they can't. Make sure I'm not over. Oh, you know. I don't care.
Oh, thank you.
You got that?
No, I left my wallet. No, sir, you take $5. Okay.
You know what? I know, but you know what? Right now, you know, with the pandemic, down. You know what? I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Echo, yeah, I like that. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, it is. So I. You getting lunch? Okay. Bye.
Right, they just got turkey, you want turkey? Huh? No, I'm just cheap. Thanks for yeah.
I think it's very, very powerful. Okay, so Harvey, what's the pattern?
Yeah, I got it.
I mean, yeah.
On paper, any city from all the circles. And every time we have. Kinlow. Mr. Kinlow.
Here we go. That's a lot.
Folks online, please mute your device. Everyone on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Please, folks online, please mute your device. Karen and Rudolph, please, when you get a second, just mute whoever who's not on mute. Thanks.
Okay, and Charles, 12 o'clock. Yes. Yeah, because they're going to be called up according to what they're running for. So they're at the table. So, we're going to start. Good afternoon. It is now 12 o'clock, so we will start our meeting on excuse me. Matt, we're getting ready to start the meeting.
But you ain't get her a drink.
And again, my name is Philip Pennell. I am the president of the Anacostia Bellevue Congress Heights AARP chapter number 4870. So we will start off with questions from our chaplain, Teresa Kelly.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I don't know how many of you knew Mary Tolson.
Bernadette. They knew about Bernadette. Okay.
Mary Bernadette Tolson. And she just, I want to have a silent prayer. She was a DC government worker under the former Mayor Marion Bailey. And we will miss her. Amen. I want to share with you this thing. Teamwork. Together we achieve more than we could ever achieve on our own. In work or play, as families, friends, or co-workers, we relate to one another with commitment and purpose. Open to the infinite presence of God in the environment of teamwork, we thrive spiritually and physically. Coming from a unifying sense of team, rather than the isolation of only them or just us, we learn and serve in great performance. We invite one another to be a part of the team, listening to ideas without assuming one way is the only way. As we assist one another in thought and action, our teamwork ensures not only quantity, but also quality. We learn from and teach one another with cooperation and care. And thankfulness to God, we commit to being a what? Team. And in the word team, is there a letter I anywhere? No, team. And this comes from Isaiah 45:20. Assemble yourselves and come together, draw near, you survivors of the nation. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you, thanking you for this opportunity to come together and hear the candidates and make the right choice. We ask that you be with us and guide us on this day. We pray for those who are here and those who are on their way to Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Teresa. We're so happy to be meeting in this wonderful facility, which is directed by the hard-working Owolewa. Give us a welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pinell. So welcome once again. We were blessed to have this forum, the Water Candidate Forum last month. So it's blessed to be able to host it once again. Well, thank everybody for joining us, and candidates. Just for those who don't know, Congress IT 107 is 116, 117 DC, funded by the Department of Aging. We actually have administrative oversight being handled by Far Southeast Family Strengthening Collaborative in partnership with the Family Strengthening. So for anybody who's online or in the building, if you don't know, if you're a DC resident 16 over, you can join the center. So we're looking forward to having you join as well. All our members here, just keep in mind, this is your local chapter AARP. So we want you to support it. So at all times, membership is available. So please see our members of the team. You can join in. Okay. All right. Well, sit back and enjoy. I'll just pass the mic back to Mr. Kinlow.
All right, thank you very much. Our community partner for our AARP meetings and events is the Anacostia Coordinating Council, which is providing box lunches today. And the chairman is not here, Lamont Mitchell, but I bring greetings on his behalf while I'm the executive. So for those of how many of you received the Anacostia Coordinating Council's online newsletters? Okay, that means there's a good number of people who don't. I want you to see me before or the meeting ends, or rather at the end of the meeting, so that I can subscribe to our newsletter, because the newsletter gives you a wealth of information. Comes out Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, and there are free events, wonderful events that are going on in the community. I'm sure you want to be aware of and possibly take advantage of. This chapter is one of 7 local AARP chapters in DC, and there are, I think, approximately 85,000 AARP members in DC. And our state president is here today to bring greetings, Ronald County. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me thank Bill and the executive body of this chapter for keeping me involved. It gives me an opportunity to come every month and meet you all face to face, talk with you. Also, just attend. The other day, I attended an interesting function. They held it over at the I can't even remember. Oh, Deanwood. It was over in Dean. And the federal government department that deals with senior issues and some of the different components that senior citizens take advantage of. They had us over there talking about developing federal plans for seniors that have to do with housing, that have to do with recreation, that have to do with a variety of health and a variety of other issues. And it's interesting that they're beginning to pull together this plan. I maybe Lewis, how you doing, Lewis? Lewis or even Phil might have said this to you all some time ago, but the government statistics show
that 10,000, it's just amazing. I find this very amazing. But 10,000 people every day turn 60 years old. Now, just think about that for a minute. Let me say it. That 10,000 people in America turn 60 years old every single day. So that has to compete with what we're sort of come to realize or think that young people or our society or America was made up of more young people than older folks. But the fact of the matter is that it's being dominated by older folks, seniors. Seniors are working long. There are provisions that allow them to stay in their house long after they've worked hard. These good government jobs, but have to stay in their house. They are also enjoying life much longer. So there's some things that was going on, and I really found it interesting that the federal government is developing this plan, which they should have, and it should be available and will be available to the states. And there are probably some states that are maybe, when it comes to benefits, maybe more advanced than some of the other states. But the fact of the matter is that I think these 10,000 people that are turning 60 every day has more or less convinced them that there's a need to be looking at how and what it takes for us to grow old comfortably. What is it that takes us to live in our houses long and be comfortable and safe? Those kind of issues that they were talking about. So if you all, and some of you all were there, it was a few faces in the room that I recognized that was at this event over there. Get a chance to participate in a gathering like this. Please encourage you to participate in it and just tell them exactly what you think. Because at the table that I was sitting at, fact of the matter is that I was the only man there other than the guy who was taking notes. The rest of them were ladies. And the majority of people that attended the meeting or the session tend to be female also. So the guys are outnumbered. The women live longer, so they're going to be benefiting from this thing. But that kind of information I never really thought about until you actually find yourself in the middle of a conversation with these people talking about these very issues. That's going to have something to do with not only how long out there, how out there, and that's very important. And AARP wants to be involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're really blessed. Not only do we have the AARP president with us today, but we also have the executive director, Louis Davis. So they give us greetings.
Thank you, Bill, and chapter and to the Wellness Center won't be long. But if you have a cell phone, AARP put questions to every one of the candidates running for office in Columbia in this primary and general election. And so if you're not following us online, if you in your cell phone text DC votes, that's DC VOTES to the number 22555, you'll get a one-time text back with a link, and it will take you to our AARP DC voter guide. And in that guide, you'll find answers to a series of questions, about 5 questions I think it was, we put to every candidate. They restricted to or limited to 500 character answers to keep things kind of level. Particularly those incumbents, they could be long-winded. But then those who want to take their seats could be even more winded. But we kept them to 500 characters each to keep things level. But you'll see answers there, their policy positions. It's a good way to be informed before you go to vote. We just got done doing a telethon hall where we had over 577 people this moment ago in a telethon hall with the Board of Elections answering questions about how to vote. If we were a state, we would be probably number 1 in the country, the ways that we make it easy to vote. So it's inexcusable not to vote. There's every fathomable way to make it possible for people to vote, so you have no excuse not to vote. So I encourage you to get out before, orange before, or the mail-in ballot that you got. I got my mail-in ballot just the other day. You probably did as well. There's assistance at the curbside, so if you have issues getting out of your car, it's just no excuse. Go out and vote. I'm Louis Davis, ARPBC. Happy to see you all here. I hope you have a great candidate forum here today. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Bill. As I said at the beginning, there are 7 local AARP chapters in DC. The dues for this chapter are $15 a year, and in order to join any local chapter, you have to be a member of the national chapter. You can join any local chapter that you want. Join all 7. I just hope you'll join this one and keep coming back. We're going to have the minutes from our last meeting by Secretary Katie Shepherd.
Good blessed morning, everyone. This is a blessed day, isn't it? Yes, it is. When you woke up this morning, give God the praise. It's a blessed day. Okay, this is the minutes from last meeting, April the 10th. It was held here at the Wellness Center, and it was a forum of our awarded candidates. We will call to order Philip Purnell, chapter president. Reflections in prayer after Lisa Kelly, chaplain. Record remarks from Regina Jeter, senior wellness business manager. Greetings from William Ritchie, Wellness Center director. We also had greetings from Lamont Mitchell, the ACC chairman. We had greetings from Ronald Hampton, the AARP DC state president. The minutes were read by Katie Shepherd. The financial report was read by Maria Powell, and the president report was given by Philip Purnell. We had a report from MPD 7 District Community Report from Officer Rotini. Then we went into the candidates forum. The candidates for Ward 8 City Council were Nate Durange, Robin Branch, Selima Dolfo, and Trayon White. Introduction of the moderator was given by Charles Turner, AARP Chapter 4870 Vice President. The moderator was Reverend Dr. Kendrick Curry, pastor of Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church. The timekeeper was Omar Odoms, ACC Engagement Specialist. Then we opened the candidates forum, and we went from there to questions and the candidates representative. This is billed by Katie Shepherd, President. Thank you. Katie Shepherd, Secretary. Thank you.
You're very welcome to become president. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes. You like on any changes to the minutes? You move to accept the second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, it passes. Financial report will be given by our treasurer, Maria Powell.
Good afternoon to each and every one of you. Last month we had a balance of $1,001.05. We had 3 people to pay their dues, which brought it to $1,096.05. And I urge each and every one of you in here, seemingly we're all seniors, that you join our chapter. Thank you. And it's $15.
Thank you, Maria. Next month, we will be meeting at the Eaton Bridge Pace Senior Center at 2211 Town Center Drive in the Skyland area. And then we will return here for our meetings from July through September. And I'll keep you posted where we go from there. Is an officer here from 17? No? All right, thank you. Okay, well, is there any unfinished business? No? Okay. Any new business? Great. Okay, as part of our voter education, this is our second candidates forum. And today, last month, we had the Ward 8 candidate forum, and Today will be those candidates who are running for citywide positions. How many of you have already received your ballots in the mail? Oh, terrific. Okay. How many of you have cast them already? Very few. So that means candidates that these folks that are out there may be determined by what you say today. And we are also online. So I will now have our Vice President Charles Turner, who will introduce the moderator for our candidate forum.
Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our candidates, citywide candidates forum. I get to introduce Alex Koma, who's a reporter from the city paper. It's unfortunate that the city paper will only be able to be read online. City paper gave us a view that we very seldom get from the majority paper, and it was refreshing to get the information from the slant that they give it. One of the most read out of sections in the city paper was loose lips. Mr. Koma took over loose lips back in January of 22. It's good to know that since he's taken over, loose lips hasn't lost a step. Thank you. We look forward to, I understand also that Mr. Koma in the past has had an interest in housing. That's good to hear, because I'd like to see more articles from loose lip on housing. We really need that. Without further ado, I'll introduce our moderator, Mr. Alex Koma.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. It's always great to be here in Congress Heights and great Ward 8. As he said, I am the loose lips columnist at Washington City Paper, here to run you through this at-large candidates forum. Before we begin, I would just urge you all, as he said, sadly, we are no longer in print, but you can find all of our political coverage at WashingtonCityPaper.com. We sure are trying to give you all the news that you need before the June 4th primary and eventually the general election. So please check us out. But that's all I'm going to say. You want to hear from our fine folks over here running for office. So we're going to get this debate moving. Unless Phil says otherwise.
No. Turns out the director said that we have exceeded the capacity in this room, which means we're now in violation of fire regulations. We have an overflow room that is set up, and I will come back and escort people there, but there is no way that anybody can be in this room standing.
Hopefully it doesn't mean me. So in that case, once we sort things out with the fire marshal, we're going to move things on to the at-large council candidates. We've got two of them. I guess we should figure out a seat for both of you, but we've got at-large council member Robert White and Rodney. So while we get settled, I'll just go over the ground rules for all of our candidates. These should have been emailed to you, so hopefully they aren't too much of a surprise. But the basic idea is that we are going to start with 2-minute long opening statements. Then we're going to allow for each one of my questions, as well as questions from the audience, which I understand you'll be submitting to me. I'm very excited to see them. Then we're going to have 1-minute long responses to those. If there's a need for a rebuttal, because one candidate has directly mentioned or critiqued the other, then we're going to have a 30-second response. You've got your timekeeper up right here. He's going to give you 10-second warnings when it comes time to start wrapping things up. Okay. And so the way that we're generally going to proceed here moving forward is moving in the order of the candidates on the ballot. So in that case, we are going to start our opening statements with Councilmember Robert White. Rob, take it away.
Thank you so much and good morning, AARP. I'm excited to be here with you Last month I was at Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and someone stopped me and said, "Am I going to see you next week at our forum?" I got really nervous, so I was glad to find out that he went too. But I'm a fifth generation Washingtonian. I grew up in the 80s and 90s in a time where many of you remember there was high level of violence. My family, like a lot of DC families, struggled financially, struggled with schools, struggled with incarceration. Now I got very lucky because after failing every single grade from third grade until my junior year in high school, I managed to get a couple of people who believed in me enough to help me believe in myself. At that point, I got my stuff together. I went to college, I studied internationally, I became a bar attorney, then I went to Capitol Hill to work for Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes North on issues like voting rights, DC's budget, needle exchange. But looking around the city, living in Southeast at the time, what I realized was that people like my family in the best times in DC still were not benefiting. So with no business running for office, I quit my job, thanks to an incredible wife, and decided to run for the DC Council. When I ran, I told people I was going to focus on the types of things that affect my family. What I've done in my 2 terms is exactly that. I passed the most expansive early childhood education legislation in the country. I passed the only bill in the country restoring all incarcerated people because of the number of Black people who are incarcerated and pushed outside of democracy. I am right now fighting for the biggest expansion of vocational education we have ever seen and working to create a city-wide network of mentors for young people so we can get them on the right road. I've introduced what I believe to be the strongest public safety bill in our city. That includes mentoring, that includes consequences for committing crimes, and for our seniors. Right now, what I am working on is a continuation of rent supplements for our seniors. I look forward to talking to you about more of the work that I'm doing. Thank you for letting me do that.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing today? Good afternoon, DC. How y'all doing today? I'm a DC resident, born and raised in Southeast Washington, DC. I'm also a DC community leader. My name is Rodney Grant. I'm a husband, I'm a retired police officer, and I'm a father of 3 beautiful daughters and 2 beautiful granddaughters that call me Papa. And I know I'm finding out that Papa feels good on. But people always ask me, why should they vote for me? Because I'm already doing the work that a council member should be doing. I'm already the chairman of public relations to bring back vocational education to Washington, D.C., teaming up with Black Women for Justice to make it the strongest vocational system in America. That was 3 years ago, and they just catching on. I'm also have a program called Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Cameras, where we teach young people filmmaking from thought to theater. We started in Ward 8, where they learn filmmaking from thought to theater. They've created 3 films already in Washington, D.C. This is what we have to do for our young people. We started with Beyond Your Block, where we take kids off their block. We're taking them to the White House, African American Museum, Commander's Game, and many other places that we're going to continue to take our young people off our block so they can have an experience like I experienced when I was growing up. You know, I was a young kid that was looking at danger in front of me in Southeast Washington. I had to make a choice. It's a hard choice sometime out here for our young people. But I know that they can make that choice if we push them, if we get in their lives. And that's what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm not talking about it, I'm doing it. So if you look up on grantatlarge.com, you'll see the work that we're doing. You know, why should you vote for me? Because I'm reliable, I'm relatable, and I'm reachable. I'm Rodney Grant, and you're gonna find out today why you should vote for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to you two. For all of you in the audience, I was just informed the way we're going to handle audience questions is if you've got a question, start thinking of now. I'm going to ask these two a few questions to get them started, but then just raise your hands. I'll come over to you with a microphone. You'll get a chance to ask our candidates questions directly. So start thinking up now, and hopefully within the next few minutes, you'll have some good ones. But I guess we'll start kind of with an obvious place to start. We've got an incumbent and a challenger. So the question I will put first to Robert and then to Rodney is, why have you earned 4 more years in this office? And then to Rodney, why does he deserve to be replaced? So Robert, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Look, in the 7 years I've been on the council, what I've done consistently is tell people what I'm going to do and go do those things. In my first term, I said I'm going to focus on early childhood education. We put our city on the path to universal early childhood education, so that our Black and brown students can catch up and do the best that they can in their lives. Because of issues with incarceration in my own family, I said I was going to focus on only incarcerated people. I tripled the size of the agency that serves them, created free housing vouchers, free transportation stipends, so they can come home and be parts of their family the way that I wanted my brother to be able to do. My second term, I said I was going to take on housing. The DC Housing Authority has been broken for decades. I'm in the midst of a full reform of that agency. I'm getting into the mix on public safety, identifying exactly what is wrong and how we fix it, because people have to be able to walk down the street safely in our city. So none of the PR, none of the splashy solutions, but in the street, talking to people, bringing those solutions to the council and getting them passed. I have the highest percentage of bills passed in the council because I work relentlessly and I listen to the community to make sure I'm doing the things you believe I need to be doing.
Hey, Robert.
Thank you. So just a reminder, the same question is, why does he deserve to be replaced?
I'm gonna be very respectful today because I know you guys are super smart. You know housing has been in trouble for the last 7 years. Y'all know the voucher system does not work. And you know that we're not getting enough money to pay rent around here. So when people talk to me about what they're doing about housing, they run a housing committee, I kind of shuck at it. But I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna continue to be in our communities fighting for you guys. I'm gonna continue to be a listener on a daily basis. You know, my mother raised me in Washington, D.C., Southeast, and she was a single parent. She raised 2 of us. And she made sure that we cleaned our blocks. She made sure we planted flowers. And I want to continue to show young people and people in DC that we can come together and love one another again. Our city is split up because of politics. And regardless of who you like and who you want to vote for, our city has to come back together. And if it doesn't, we're in trouble. And that's for real. We got to get God back in our life. We got to get God back in this city. And Marionberry's spirit will come back because we love him and I love him, and I'm gonna bring his spirit back and make sure it's here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much to you both. So moving on to our next question, both of you have mentioned at varying degrees, the issue of public safety and violence in the city. The council and the mayor, I'm sure those of you who have been faithfully reading Washington City paper and keeping up with the news know that there's been quite a bit of debate about what to do about public safety in the city. We're gonna let folks calm down a little bit. All right. There's been a big debate about what to do about public safety in the city. There's been one major crime bill passed, I think Robert has alluded to already. So my question for both of the candidates is simply, what comes next? There's a lot of talk about various pieces of legislation, agencies that need to be reformed. What would you do next to really take, a crack at solving violence in the city? So for the sake of, mixing things up, we'll give Rodney a chance to answer this one first.
Great question, because crime is out of control in our city, especially with our youth, our young people. Our young people, the crime is going crazy. 71 shots the other day on Spring Road. 71 shots on Spring Road. Dunbar Senior High School the other morning, a drive-by shooting when kids trying to go to school just to get an education. A 3-year-old gets shot the other night. We got to get our safety together. We know today that young people mostly commit crime because they need money. And we got to make sure that they get equity in their life early. We can't leave our kids out here. We need to have summer youth program all year round. We need to have money and equity for them in school so they can get stipends. And we got to continue to put love into our young people. And if we don't do that, we're in trouble. They're the future. We already been there. We got to continue to push it to them. Let's come together and give it to them. Thank you.
When I was growing up in this city, I saw my first drive-by when I was 9 years old, playing basketball at Usher Park. Not too far from there, just a couple years ago, I'm a father of a 3-year-old and got an email that they can no longer go outside and play because of the number of shootings in the middle of the day in front of my daughter's daycare. What we are seeing in our city is absolutely unacceptable, and we need to make sure we have leaders that can figure out how to fix this. Here is what we need to do next. Fix the 911 system. There is no accountability if you can't reach the police when an emergency happens. 911 broke under the mayor's watch. I'm trying to fix it. Our crime lab, we can't prosecute people who are spraying bullets in our streets if we don't have a crime lab with accreditation. I'm trying to get our crime lab that broke under Mayor Bowser fixed. But that is response. We also need to prevent. That means vocational education, so our young people can be making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 when they graduate. That means mentors for young people so they can make better decisions at the hardest times in life and focusing on truancy. Those are the things that I am doing right now.
All right, Robert.
Thank you very much. Well, our gracious hosts have told me that I have to ask about housing, so that's my last question. You'll hear from me, and then we'll get it a chance to go out to all the rest of you and some of our viewers online. So, thinking about housing, as Councilmember White mentioned, he is the chair of the Housing Committee, so I know that this is something that he has been focused on.
Oh.
We'll start with Robert in that case. So, tell us, what have you done to improve the dire state of affordable and public housing in the city, and what do you have left to do? And then what I'd love Rodney Grant to respond to is, where are the things that you would do if you were in the council member's shoes? What are the major housing issues that you would try and tackle in this city? So we'll start with you, Robert.
Thank you. I've been chair of the Housing Committee for 1 year and 3 months, and we have not stopped work. A full reform of public housing that has been broken for decades, which you should expect to see, is those units that are uninhabitable coming back online in the coming months. Because I reformed the board, and I reformed the leadership, and I reformed the finances that they get. Second, I've created shallow rent subsidies for seniors who can pay some money toward their rent, but not all of it. So we're helping more and more seniors. I've created senior housing vouchers for seniors that can't pay any of it to make sure that they have an opportunity for housing. Continuing to think outside the box. I've created a law that allows the city to create housing covenants. So we can now go out and purchase existing apartment units, limit the rent on them, and rent them to people at a reasonable cost. And for 5 years, I've been pushing our city to create more housing downtown because we don't need all those office buildings. We do need housing that everyday people can afford. So as somebody, as a fifth generation Washingtonian who has seen most of my family price out of this city, that is why I act with so much urgency on this issue. So 1 year for 2 months that I've chaired this committee.
Thank you. Moving now to Rodney, how he would tackle housing, specifically affordable and public housing in the city.
Well, first of all, housing is scarce in our city, and it's definitely not affordable. And when people say that they're gonna do things about making it more affordable, they need to do it. It shouldn't take 7 years to get it done. Do we want to do another 4 years of somebody telling us to get it done? I don't. I'm a pragmatic Democrat. That means I think in a common sense way. We got to start thinking in the common sense way. We got to make sure we refurbish the vacant properties that we have in Washington, D.C. and make them livable for people. We need to make sure we get involved with the residential properties that are not being utilized in Washington, D.C. And third, we got to make sure that it's energy developed, green energy developed, so we can use it and make sure that our city is on the same grid as other cities. And once we do that, we're going to make sure our city is in a proper position. I want to make sure that we understand, though, that this is not going to happen just by talking about it. We got to get out and do it on a daily basis. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So now you've heard enough from me. I'm going to turn to you all in the audience for questions. I'm going to come out, play game show host because we only have the one working mic. So throw up your hands if you got a question. We'll start, and we've got a few online as well.
Hi, how's everybody doing? What I like to know, what are your thoughts about strengthening families where a lot of these young people are coming from, helping the parents? And let me tell you, there are a lot of parents out here have been begging for help for their children. It's not people say, oh, parents cannot find help. What are your thoughts about that?
Great question. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She went to school at Johnson Middle School down the street, and she went to Deal Middle School. And what I found out that, you know, some parents need a lot of help out here in DC. And, you know, they got kids, some of them are bullying their parents. And that's happening a lot. And we got to stop that. We can't have parents or grandparents in the home getting bullied. So we got to make sure that you guys have a line that you can call when that's happening, and make sure that you guys are protected, because your kids cannot be bullying each other. You know, but one thing we do have to invest into them too. We got to continue to invest into our kids. We got to continue to have our good men in DC come back. You know, when they're coming back from prison, let them get involved with these kids too. You know, let them show that the mentorship they need to be shown. So that's what I would do. I will make sure that we have a line that you can call. I will make sure that our kids are not bullying you guys in your home, and make sure that our good men are back in their life and that return home from prison.
Turning now to Councilmember White.
I'm the father of two daughters, a 7-year-old named Madison and a 5-year-old named Monroe, and it's the most important thing that I do. But I know how to father because I had a father who, as a single father, knew how to raise me and show me the importance of love and presence. But I'm looking at a city where a lot of folks didn't have that. We have people raising kids who weren't parented themselves. Those parents, those families need resources. And we have a lot of people, including a lot of people in this room, that knows what that means, that has something to pass on about parenting, about budgeting, about sewing. And we need to mobilize, particularly our seniors, but our entire community around these families. If we do that, we're going to strengthen families. As I see a lot of people around the city asking, why are we holding parents accountable for what young people are doing in these streets? And there is some truth to that. But the reality is most of those families need more resources. And if we lock up or find a parent that has multiple kids because of what one kid does, then the issue with their other kids gets worse. So if we don't wrap around these families with the resources in our community, it's going to get worse, but we do have the resources, and I want to tap it.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the audience? Anyone with something on their mind? Okay, great. Look at that.
When I watch the news, and especially with this young baby who was just shot the other day at 3 years old, I often wonder, do they ever ask the person committing the crime why? Why did you do that? This is what I want to know. Why did you do it? And then if we learn why, maybe that can begin a process to getting restoration for that person who committed the crime.
Great point. I agree. The why is the crucial question, because you know a lot of young people are screaming out for mental health services. They're screaming out for help. So the why is the key to this whole thing. When young people commit crimes, you know, just know that they can be doing some other things. We gotta get them some other, you know, but we can't keep just slapping them on the hand either. You know, the slapping on the hand don't work no more, because it's too many people in danger now for the slap on the hand. But we do have to get them services early. When we know that they have mental health issues, let's get them mental health issue services immediately. Let's get proper wraparound services in these homes so our young people can have somebody that they say love and care and respect them.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
when they go before I want to know, why did that? Tell me, why did you do that? Then I can begin to work. I needed this, I needed that. I was
Are you saying in front of the court, telling us why did you do it? You know, and that's a good question. You know, we need to put legislation in place so they will start answering these questions. Why? Because you want to know the answers. I want to know the answers. And one. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for being involved.
All right, turning to Councilmember White.
The question of why is something we absolutely have to ask. I appreciate you asking that question. Now, when we ask the person who killed this 3-year-old boy,
Let's see, bye.
there still has to be a.
Can you give
Thank you. So as we ask why did you spray bullets in a way that would put innocent lives, including a 3-year-old, in danger? I want to know that answer to help prevent it in the future. That person still has to face accountability for what they did. But answering the question of why helps gives us more information to where we need resources. One of them is mental health, but there are not enough mental health professionals to meet the need, which is why I created a free Master's in Social Work program for DC residents, so we can help with this. I've also asked our agencies to study this, to look at young people who have become involved in the criminal justice system and identify the commonalities so we know where to put our resources. That's where I'm putting the resources. The ones that went into the criminal justice system and didn't repeat. I want to know what programs they went through so that we can beef up those programs. That is stuff that I'm already doing quietly, putting money, putting resources into things that work because I am already.
Thank you so much. Okay, I believe we've got some questions from online, so I'm going to do my best to grab one for you. This time around, we'll start with Councilmember White, since we've been starting with Mr. Grant. So once we get a question, we'll start with you.
Okay, this question is from Ms. Yvonne online. What about enforcement of truancy? One of 3 preteens who stomped the scene to death and not been to school a single day this year. How will you legislate to hold parents accountable?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Yvonne. I introduced the truancy bill just a few weeks ago. Right now, the city is getting 1 report on truancy. It's at the end of the school year. That's too late to do anything. We need to be able to respond in real time. So what I'm demanding is a monthly report from every single school on truancy. That'll tell us 2 important things. One, what are the schools that are doing a good job getting their kids into school so we can replicate that? Then for the other schools that are not doing a good job of getting their kids into school, we get the resources to the schools and to the families more quickly. We have to get resources. One of the things, the 2 things that are most causing truancy right now are housing instability and food instability. Those are programs that the mayor has cut drastically in her budget. So when you talk about the work I've been doing over the past year and a half, it is fighting back against that, increasing the amount of money for SNAP, increasing the amount of money for emergency rental assistance, getting our housing in a better position so that young people are getting into schools more.
Thank you very much. Turning to Mr. Grant on truancy.
Truancy, I was a kid at Dunbar Senior High School and Sousa Junior High School, and I skipped class every once in a while. I skipped school. I'm pretty sure somebody in here skipped school too. You know, but when I skipped school, they made sure my mother knew about it. And so I have a 15-year-old, and when she's late for school, they call me at home. So we know as parents that our kids are not going to school. So we got to make sure that we tap into our parents and give them the help to push our kids to get to school. You know, our kids, and put programs in the school that they want to learn. Kids don't even want to go to school because there's nothing in the school that is innovative for them. You know, we got to get innovation in school, back in school, filmmaking, videography. We got to get what they like. They like to rap. Let's put some music in school. They took all the bands out of schools. In Dunbar, we got 8 people in our band. We had the most powerful band in the city. They took music out of our school. They taking things out of our school that make our kids go to school. And you wonder why our kids are not going to school because they took all the programs out the school. And they took all the programs, they took all the recreation centers out the community. And you want to know why our kids are not going to school.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more audience questions. I see a hand in the back. Bear with me as I make my way to you.
I'm a person of the housing that has taken them to do my house at least 5 years. Also, I'm a public school teacher. You had no counselors. You had no one in there to help those children. The parents, they're young and they don't know. You meet them in the store, they don't even know how to buy a can of corn. Because these children are the children of us, our generation, that we have fought for, and we have let them down. I don't care what you say,
is what you want to do for certain parts of the city. There's certain things that you want to do for certain children. So what you say is not, but what are you going to do to prove what you want?
So why don't we start this time around with Robert, since we started with Rodney a few more times, addressing what we can do for kids.
Thank you for that question. What are you going to do? What have you done? We can't have great schools without great teachers, but we have more teachers leaving DC public schools than any other schools in the country. That is why I talk to teachers. I say, what are the things that are going to get you to stay? And I wrote legislation and funded it to get them there. Guess what the mayor did? She took it out of the budget. So we're always fighting an uphill battle. We had a school, Washington Met, for students that have been kicked out of other schools, but we still believe that they could succeed, and they were succeeding. Guess what the mayor did? She said, we're closing Washington Met. So I joined arm in arm with those students to say, we can't close this school. But the mayor did close the school. I wish the council controlled the government as the mayor did. We would be a better city. But we need people on the council who are willing to fight against the mayor, who are winning most of their fights, who are listening to our students, who are standing up for our community, because no matter how many times the mayor defunds or doesn't implement, guess what? I'm gonna keep getting back up and I'm gonna keep fighting, because we have gotta fight for our students. Yes. Yes. He ripped them. We did.
So you never in doubt. You blame a lot of things that you are going to learn. It's the purpose. You have to get the purpose.
You do have to. Yeah, you're 100% right. But the teachers are leaving under Bowser. Fenty ripped a bunch of good teachers, but Bowser is continuing to push them out the door.
All right, we're going to give Mr. Grant a chance to respond to all this.
Folks online, please be sure to mute your device. Staff, please make sure you're muting the participants.
So to answer your question, there's a lot of lip service in Washington, D.C. in our government. That's why I came back home and ran to Washington, D.C. City Council. When God gave me a message 3.5 years ago to come back home, sell everything in Los Angeles, tell my wife to retire, I did that for a reason, because this city raised me. This city gave me everything I had. And when I go out there and represent, they can say I'm an entertainer or whatever, but I'm a businessman first. And I know business first. And I know this city is a big corporation and they are not running it properly. They're putting money into places that shouldn't go. Ward 8 and the east of the river is struggling the most. And they're not giving any benefits over here. And common sense will tell you, if it's struggling the most in Ward 8 and Ward 7 and east of the river, well, why are we not putting the funds and the energy into Ward 8 and Ward 7 so our family can continue to live good and our seniors won't be struggling to go and live ends meet back and forth, check to check, trying to. My mother's 75 years old, and I want to make sure she continues to live with a spirit, and I want her. That's why I go see her every day, because that's her spirit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grant. We're going to get to one last question. One last question. Okay, to our humble hosts.
The mayor's talking about throwing a lot of money downtown to change offices into residents. Most of the talk has been about market rate units. What would you do to ensure that a needed percent of those units go to, not the dubious word affordable, but to people who pay no more than 30% of their income for rent? What would you do to ensure that that would happen?
Why don't we start with Mr. Grant for our final question?
Great question. There's no affordable living in Washington, D.C. That word should be thrown out. Because there's no affordable living. We should have a set rent price for our seniors, first of all, where they should not go, they should not be charged over certain amounts of rent if they have to pay rent at all. We should be having programs to make sure that you guys really get your rent paid. That's what it's really about. You worked all your life and you want to just chill and have fun, eat your grass and play your spades and do whatever you do and play bingo. Look, that's what we want for our seniors. Let's give them the breaks. We're giving everybody else tax breaks around this city. Whole downtown got $500 million. And how much did they give east of the river? That's what I'm saying. We got to do better. Ted Leonis, he already rich. He already got it. We want the downtown to be strong, but we want to make sure that our east of the river is just as strong as that. I'm Rodney Grant. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to close things out here with Councilmember White. Yes, no closing statements for you guys. Got to move on to our next.
Well, thank you for the question. Our economy is rooted in tourism and hospitality. Folks that work in these industries don't make a ton of money. So the further they need to move from the city, the fewer of them that are going to help keep our economy. That is why when that money went out the door to convert housing, you know who was on the council demanding that more of that be affordable? It was me, against the mayor, against the developers, against many council members, and I won that fight. And every time we put money in the housing downtown, that's the fight I'm going to take on. But my vision for the future of downtown includes working people. It includes seniors, because everywhere downtown is near Metro. So we want people like seniors who can live in a part of the city where you don't have to have a car if you don't want to. You can get around. I want the workers who keep our economy going to be able to live there. Now, what you will hear a lot of times when people want to run for office, they're going to promise you the moon. And guess who gets left holding the bag when they don't admit that hard things are bad, that hard things are hard? Everyday people who are fighting. Aren't you tired of politicians who will promise you the moon, tell you hard things are easy, as opposed to the one who will look you in the eye and say hard things are hard, but guess what? I can solve hard things. Over these past 7 years, I have solved hard things, and we've got more to do. So I'm Robert White, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you for letting me be with you today.
Okay, thank you so much, candidates for at-large council member. Let's give them all one big hand one last time as we make our transition. Okay, we are close to things going. We are going to move now to the candidates for our shadow delegation. First for shadow senator. So gentlemen, if you want to make your way up here. So we have Ankit Jain here and Eugene Kinlow, our two candidates for shadow senator. While they get settled, I will just give you a quick recap. Shadow senator is, of course, not an actual senator, but, you know, they sort of play one on TV in a sense to advocate for statehood and do their best to get the cause of DC autonomy out there for everyone. They serve 6-year terms. Michael D. Brown is retiring for this current term, so this is an open seat race between the two gentlemen that we've got right now. So once again, we're going to start with our opening statements, going based on ballot order. I believe, Ankit, you will be first. So 2 minutes, take it away.
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to thank AARP for hosting this, and Phil Purnell I've seen him in like 3 different capacities over the past week. This guy is relentless. So appreciate Phil, appreciate Alex for being our amazing host today. And most of all, I appreciate all of you for coming out on a Wednesday afternoon to talk about democracy issues. It's really important, and it's amazing to have such a great turnout at this event. My name is Ankit Jain. I'm a Ward 2 resident. I grew up in Fairfax County, just across the river from DC. I spent my time regularly going into the city for things like Wizards games. You know, I'm a lifelong DC sports fan. I've been a Wizards fan since the Jordan years when I was lucky enough to get picked out of the audience by some staff to introduce the players onto the court. And so I'm really excited to be here in Ward 8. I don't own a car. I'm a Metro super user and a biker. And so I'm really excited to fight for federal funding for our Metro system. Now, you know, I'm a voting rights attorney. I'm running for this position because I've dedicated my whole life to fighting for people's right to vote. I work with Fair Vote, and I truly believe in democracy. You know, I believe that the people have the right to control their own destiny. I believe that we know what's best for us. And I don't take democracy for granted. You know, my parents came here to the US from India as immigrants, and my parents had to sleep in line overnight outside their local immigration office to get their green card and get on the pathway to a vote. And you know, my parents fought too hard to gain the right to vote in this country to see their son lose that right just because he decided to cross the river into the city. The people of DC, we deserve the same rights that every other citizen of this nation receives, and that is the right to vote, the right to influence our government, and the right to control our own destiny. And that is what I will be fighting for as your shadow senator. My name is Ankit Jain, and I hope I can get your vote on June 4th, 2020.
Very much, Ankit. Moving to Mr. Kinlow.
All right, Ward 8. Hi, I'm Eugene Kinlow. I'm a resident of Ward 8. Grew up right here in the neighborhood. Went to Hart Junior High School, went to Bellevue High School. First, I just want to shout out to my mom and my dad, Eugene and Dan Kinlow. We all live on 2nd Street. I live right down the street from my mom and dad, so I'm the neighborhood kid. And it's so good to look out here and see all the folk that I've known since I was a kid, and now I'm a member of AARP, this chapter. So I'm running for this U.S. Senate position because I'm a fighter and I'm a believer. And I believe as a U.S. citizen living in Washington, D.C., I should be treated as every other citizen. Do you believe that? Yes. Do you believe that we deserve 2 senators and 1 member of Congress? Yes. I believe that. I believe that we should be the 51st state. Do you believe that? Yes. All right, if you believe that, well, join with me. And I am not just a believer, but a doer. I have been fighting for DC statehood for over 20 years. Have you been to a protest downtown on DC statehood associated with the Anacostia Coordinating Council? Anybody? I know we got a few folk here. Well, I probably was a part of that. If you've been on Capitol Hill on a lobby day, I probably helped organize that. If you were part of a protest here in Washington, D.C., I probably organized that. I've been a part of every aspect of the movement. Why? Because I know that we in Washington, D.C. deserve full-class citizenship. I need your support to vote for me because I'm the best qualified person for this position. This young man right here, he's a nice guy, but he has not been in the fight like I've been in the fight. Not just the fight for this issue, but fights for issues that matter to this community. Issues that relate to quality of life, fighting for grocery stores, fighting against trash transfer stations, fighting for this community, and fighting for Washington, D.C. So I need your support. Consider me Eugene DeWitt Kinlow. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of our candidates. So we are going to start, hopefully, with a little bit of a chance for these two to tell you their vision for how they would be a shadow senator. It's a role without a lot of formal responsibilities. I know we've both spoken about this. So I want to hear from you two. How would you approach this role? What would you view as the way that you would use this power to advocate for statehood and DC autonomy? We'll start once again with Ankit.
Yeah, so I mean, the first question I get asked when I tell people running for shadow senator is, what is a shadow senator? Well, the way I think of it is a shadow senator is our elected lobbyist for our rights before the U.S. Senate. They are the person who organizes the campaigns, leads the messaging and strategy, and takes the meetings with senators and their staff to get what we want out of Congress. So we need somebody who actually has a vision, like how are we going to make statehood happen? What I have not seen up until now is an actual vision for how statehood is going to happen. And you know, Mr. Kinlow here talks a lot about his experience. The interesting thing about experience is it gives you a track record, right? Mr. Kinlow worked with the Mayor's Office of Federal Relations as really working with the mayor to work with Congress, and he was asked to leave that job because he was bad at it. And he had the council lose out on $750 million in COVID funding. He lost. He was vacationing in Miami when we had one of the most high-stakes congressional hearings before the U.S. Senate and Congress. He made sexually inappropriate remarks to his people he supervised, and after he was asked to leave for all of those reasons, he's asking us, the voters of D.C., for a promotion. Well, I don't think we should give it to him. Thank you. My name is Ankit Jain. I can make it happen.
Okay, quite a bit in there.
So first of all,
we'll give you an extra 30 seconds since you was.
Well, first of all, I'm a black man, so I'm used to attacks. I'm used to people attacking my character. You got your facts wrong, A, B, C, and D. And as an attorney, you should know not to make accusations like that because you can be sued for that. You need to know. And so you are so incorrect on so many things. So I'll probably talk to my attorney because you should know better. I stand on my record. Every year I bring back $100 million for the Washington, D.C. through the D.C. appropriations process. That's one of the things I've done. I am proud of my record in statehood. We created the first office of statehood, and I was the first director of that office. With $750 million for D.C., guess what? We made it up. If we were a state, we would have gotten that up. But the reason that we didn't get it initially because we were coded in the legislation as a what? As a territory. But we got that recoded so we were a state. So you need to get your facts right. And if you want to be a leader, you can't attack people with incorrect facts. So I stand on my record, and my record every day is the fight for you and the fight for the residents of Washington, D.C. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to a little more about what it is a shadow senator does, as both of them have referred to. It's a lot about advocating for DC priorities up on Capitol Hill. Some of you might have remembered just recently, Congress did something they haven't done in several generations. They overturned a law that the DC Council passed, covering revisions to the criminal code. That was quite controversial. Our current shadow senator at the time, Michael D. Brown, in part agreed with some of what Congress was doing. That was even more controversial, especially among folks running for shadow senators. So I wanted to put the question to both of you. Is there ever an instance where you would support Congress overturning a local DC law? Why or why not? We can start here with Eugene.
Okay, so the answer is, who are you with? And up on Capitol Hill, you know who I'm with? I'm with our elected officials here in Washington, D.C. Now, let's see, it's a little bit after 1, and right now on Capitol Hill at 1 o'clock, Congress, the House Oversight Committee has called our chief of police and our mayor up to talk about what are we going to do with GW and where are we or why we're not there. Now, they don't do this with any other state. We have a very effective force that handles massive of First Amendment activities for popes, elected officials, presidents, members of Congress. We know what we're doing in that regard. We need to make sure that we are always in concert, particularly when we go on Capitol Hill on our issues. I don't see an instance where I would go from Capitol Hill and say, oh, I agree with you, Mr. Senator or member of Congress, in overturning this law. I stand with the residents and I stand with our elected officials here in Washington, D.C.
All right, thank you very much. Moving to Ankit on this one.
Yeah, I have a simple answer to the question about whether I would ever support Congress overturning a local law. The answer is no. I would never, ever support Congress overturning a local law. I don't care what the mayor thinks. I don't care what any member of the council thinks. It's our local government that makes the decisions for us. Some random senator from Wyoming or congressman from Louisiana should not be telling us how we should run our own government. And I was actually out there protesting against Congress trying to overturn our revised criminal code because it's our decision whether you agree with it. And so I am 100% committed to fighting for our local rights and our local laws, no matter what anyone else in the government thinks. And I will protect our local laws from congressional interference because all of us in this room are the ones who should be voting for the people who make decisions for us.
Okay, thank you so much to you both. I want to open this up to audience questions since we don't have a ton of time. Audience questions. Ooh, we have a question from a candidate. All right, well, unusual, but why not?
In light of the wild swings in criminal justice reform and policing policy, how does statehood and autonomy impact that?
Yeah, we'll start with Eugene.
Well, safety impacts us a lot of different ways here in Washington, D.C. For example, the National Guard. You saw what happened on January 6th? The big thing up on the Hill? Well, guess what? If we were in control of our National Guard, we would have been able to send them in and say, you can't do that, or we would have broken it up. But we're not in charge, and we're not in charge of our National Guard. And the only way we can be in charge of our National Guard is to be state. So that is one way where we can get back to controlling all of our assets. But on criminal justice, let me just push a little further, since all politics is local. I think that we need more police officers that live here in Washington, D.C. How many police officers, you know, if you go out to Maryland and Prince George's County, you see officers take their cruisers home, they're in the neighborhood. It instills safety. It makes you feel safer. We need to do that for Washington, D.C. We need to get to our core number of 4,000 police officers as well. But we need to make sure that we move them back into the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ankit?
Yeah, you know, when we talk about criminal justice and public safety, the lack of statehood is one of the biggest detriments to us keeping our communities safe. So we have a federal prosecutor who is actually appointed by the President of the United States and not accountable to any of us in this room at all. That person prosecuted only 33% of all people arrested by MPD in the year 2022. You know, when criminals know that, you know, maybe they'll get arrested, but they're not going to get prosecuted, they're more likely to commit crimes. Really, it's as simple as that. And if we had a local prosecutor who was prosecuting 33% of all cases during a crime surge, that person would be voted out of office the next year, and they would know it. And that is why we need statehood, because we need people who are accountable to us, protecting our public safety. I truly believe if we were a state, we wouldn't be seeing the level of crime surge that we're seeing now. Of course, there would be crime, but it would not be to the degree it is right now because our criminal justice system just is not working for DC.
Okay, thank you so much to you both. I understand we've got a question from our online viewers, so I'm going to come over here for that.
All right, this question is from Yvonne. Why not move to be a territory first?
Okay, we will start with Ankit. Why not move to be a territory first?
I mean, we basically already are a territory, right? We're essentially a colony of the federal government right now. We are paying taxes. We pay more taxes per capita than any other country, state in this country, and we don't get any say in how those taxes are paid. So, you know, when people say, why don't we be a territory first? I would say we already are one, and we should do better than that. We should be a state because we are exactly the same as any other resident of this nation, and we deserve the right to vote and the right to influence how our tax dollars are spent. And that's what I'm 100% committed to, is getting statehood for DC.
Okay, thank you. Moving now to Eugene.
So what I want you guys to be careful about is people who throw out the shiny thing over here to make you focus on it instead of looking at DC statehood. Some people say, well, why don't you move back to Maryland? Because we were part of Maryland. That's not what we're trying to do. Some people will say, well, why don't we do a constitutional amendment? No, we're not talking about a constitutional amendment. We're talking about DC statehood. The solution is DC statehood. Remember in your history books you heard when black people wanted to be full of their own power, you know what they said? Why don't you move back to Africa? We've heard this before. That's a solution. It sounds like a solution, but it's not a real solution. So the solution is for us to fight to become the 51st state, to be active, to be out in the states. Washington, D.C., 86% of us, we support D.C. statehood, but we need to share that with your cousins, your friends, your relatives that are outside of Washington, D.C., and get them involved. I think we've done a good job of educating people across the country, but we could do a better job. So let's do that.
Okay, thank you. Another question from our hosts.
Everyone agrees we should have statehood. What specific, 2 or 3 specific things would you do to advance statehood for this?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because I think it is important to get into specifics. So I'm going to say one thing first is the Democrats nationally have a big pro-democracy bill they've been pushing for several years now. And I think DC statehood should be in that bill. What is a greater democratic failing in this country than 700,000 tax-paying Americans being denied the right to vote? And, you know, we have to be honest here, a lot of national Democrats don't really think about DC all that much. If we can get a DC statehood bill in a bigger pro-democracy bill that Democrats nationwide really do care about, that is how we're going to get this bill passed. So that's number one. Number two is that we have a lot of nationwide supporters across the country. We talk about the League of Women Voters, we talk about the ACLU, about all different kinds of groups, the NAACP, who have members in the jurisdictions of these senators and congressmen who actually do have a vote on this bill. So I will be working to get those people to be our strongest advocates for DC statehood and be pushing to make DC statehood a nationwide pro-democracy effort. Now I want to say one last thing is often we have the different parts of the state movement within DC in different directions. The mayor is doing one thing, the council is doing a second thing, DC Vote's doing a third thing. I will be collaborating and coordinating with everyone within the movement in DC to make sure that we're all on the same page, growing in the same direction, and greater than the sum of our parts in this movement.
Okay, thank you. Turning to Eugene.
Okay, so he talks about what he would do. I can talk about what I'm already doing. This is not theory, right? So talk about working out in the States. I've been out in the States. I've traveled. In '04, I was in Boston for the convention, the Democratic convention, at the Tea Party. In '08, I was in Denver for the protest at the Mint. I led in 2011, right here in Washington, D.C., I was a part of a group that were about 72 of us got arrested, including Mayor Gray, Mayor Bowser, and a number of councilors. So I've been there, and I've been a part of the movement. But out in the States, what can we do? I think one, on day one, we need to have a 51 state tour. A 51 state tour, 51 days. And it's just not about the delegation on the Hill heading out into the states, but we need to bring everybody. I need to be the mayor there. I need our council members there. I need our advisory neighborhood commissioners there. I need AARP there. I need our AARP national president. I need our chapters there that support us. And in 51 days, I believe we can hit every state and educate people about why they need to support us, because that's where the solution is. Not here in D.C. We got to get outside of Washington, D.C. We got to talk to the people that got power and the people that got members of the Senate and Congress.
Thank you so much. Other questions for our fine shadow senator candidates? Anything coming up? Okay.
What I would like to know is, how can we get money to hire more law enforcement people to help get more safety to our streets, as well as on our transportation? Our transportation frightens a lot of people, especially our senators, our seniors. Trying to get from one point to the other, or even trying to get to transportation. The violence in the street frightens everybody. Next thing is, we have too many guns on the street. I know, because I'm an ex-military person, that it's quite easy to get guns. Now, I'm not going to state where you can go and get these guns, but these guns that you got, all the guns that you hear, are not regular guns that a family person will own. These are military guns that some of these people on the street are using. That's why you have 71 shots and all that going on at one time. And the people who are shooting, they don't know how to use these weapons regardless of what it is. So therefore, they hit little 3-year-old girls, you, me, and anybody else who's in the way. Bullets don't have eyes. So I want to know, what kind of money can we get for this?
Why don't we start with Eugene? Start with Ankit for the last few.
Okay, one, as a veteran, I want to thank you for your service. People don't know it, but our folk in Washington, D.C. have been part of the military. They fight and die in wars that expand democracy abroad, but don't have it here in Washington, D.C. So we have to really elevate our military and our veterans as we head out to the states. Now, one piece about D.C. statehood, it provides for more resources. If we were state, I believe that we would have $3.2 billion more dollars available to spend on our priorities, whether it's our seniors, whether it's our children, whether it's on public safety. And that's why there's a pie only so big. Those folks in charge and in control, they're controlling it and making sure that we don't have access to that pie. But we need to make sure that we're safe. We can fund those priorities.
All right, thank you. And Ankit?
Yeah, I think that, of course, statehood is important, but another aspect of the shadow senator position that I think is underused right now is it's our lobbyists for our issues before the U.S. Senate, right? So I want to really focus on issues impacting D.C. and pushing for funding like you're talking about for those kinds of issues. You know, one of the things, you have national Republicans, out-of-state Republicans, they're always talking about crime in D.C., yet they are sitting on like 5 different gun bills in the U.S. Congress that would help solve this problem. And when they talk about crime in D.C., I will be up there on Capitol Hill saying, pass a gun control bill, pass a federal gun control bill, because that would address so much of the problem here in our city. Like you were saying, we have guns, gun violence is out of control. Guns are illegal, guns are flooding our streets. And one of the things that frustrates me is when you talk about nationwide about gun control, you talk about like mass shootings in like Parkland, Florida with a bunch of white kids, right? They don't talk about shootings in Congress Heights, which happens every day. And I want the conversation about gun control to be about everyday shootings that happen on the streets here in DC and other cities, to make sure that when people talk about crime, we need to talk about gun control. We need gun control to fight crime. That's what I will be doing when I'm your shadow senator.
Okay, I think we've got time for one last question. One last question. Anyone in the audience? Oh, okay, back in the back. One moment, one moment.
I want to talk about the safety for not just the District of Columbia, but all around. But the main thing, is it possible that you have the National Guard to help patrol the street? Because I'm like when they had the riots here in 1968, they had the National Guard that, like I say, it,
All right, so we're addressing.
I'm gonna say that it's way to have National Guard to have patrol the street, but that probably to cut down from the crime in the city. It's a lot safer if we had National Guard. So police can't do all the job by itself.
All right, well, let's give Eugene a chance, and then we'll close out with Ankit.
Okay, I'm not sure if I got the full gist of your question, but again, just for an example, today you've got Congress calling us up saying how come we didn't respond when Congress even failed to respond on January 6th. So they're calling us in to talk about something that they haven't done. Statehood puts us in control of our assets, our public safety. It puts us in greater control because we don't have other people what to do with our peace. We don't have people saying, oh, we'll take over your police force and federalize. So we need to be in control of our own work. Statehood would allow us to do that from A to Z. It would also provide for more funding for those structures that are part of our DC government. So I think that's the solution. Thank you. And is this the closing? No.
We're not going to do this.
All right. So I'm not going to say vote for me on June 4th. I'm going to say vote for me right now. So vote Kinlow. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ward 8.
All right, and on to the close us out.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I like to be honest with people. I do not think we should call in our National Guard into DC. I think we should be working with our local police department to solve crime because they're the ones who can address that problem. I do think the mayor should have control of the National Guard because our National Guard, because she's the one who understands the situation on the ground. And so that's my opinion on that. So my name is Ankit Jain. You know, I am a voting rights attorney. I've been working with the organization Fair Vote. Before that, I worked at the Sierra Club doing environmental law for 4 years, fighting for our environmental rights. I've been on the ground working on legislative advocacy, and I am someone who will bring that experience, my legislative advocacy experience, to this position. I am someone who will be a dedicated, independent, collaborative, and effective voice for DC as your shadow senator. And I have the vision for what this position can do, and I have the ability to bring everyone together to actually make statehood happen. I hope I can earn your vote for DC Shadow Senator. Again, my name is Ankit Jain, and I will be the person who makes statehood happen. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear it one last time for our two folks running for Shadow Senator here. Can we get our candidates running for Shadow Representative to join us on stage? Okay. As we're getting settled here, we have candidates for Shadow Representative. Shadow Representative. Okay, everyone, if you're having a conversation, I would kindly ask you to take it out in the hall so we can get to our candidates stepping up right here. The Shadow Representative.
Wait a minute, excuse me, y'all. We're trying to get through this candidates forum. We're also recording it. Please be respectful of the process. Thank you.
Bill has said it exceptionally well. We will turn now to our three candidates running for shadow representative. Much like shadow senator, they are getting a chance to advocate for DC's policies, DC autonomy and statehood. We have Owolewa, our current shadow rep, Ciprian Ivanof, running for the Republican nomination, and Linda Gray, who is challenging. So we are going to turn now to opening statements for all three. We are going to start with first on our ballot. 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you so much, Alex, for allowing me to be here. Thank you so much, AARP and Phil, for allowing this to happen. My name is Dr. Owolewa. I'm a healthcare worker, I'm a pharmacist, former ANC commissioner, current U.S. representative, Ward 8 resident. The reason why I say these things isn't just to talk about what I do, but why I do them. About a few years ago, 6 years ago, I became an ANC commissioner, and what I learned about being an ANC is not about what the role they define you as, it's about what you do with those opportunities. People like Judith who guided me to be who I am. What got me into the DC statehood advocacy was going to Capitol Hill one day and lobbying for statehood, a racial justice issue, and seeing that the full room looks nothing like this. We're talking about Black rights, and this room, Ward 8, wasn't going to Capitol Hill. But rather than complain about it, I brought Capitol Hill to Ward 8. I brought Congresswoman Norton to my ANC commission, and I caught that bug. Becoming U.S. representative, where we amplify the awareness of DC statehood, talk about voting rights, but also walk the walk while we talk the talk. We're helping returning citizens get their records cleared with our budget that's keeping our community safe. We are going to classrooms, getting kids interested in careers that can keep our community safe. We are teaching minority business owners how to get contracts and grants and certifications. Not because it's a fun thing to do, because it's the right thing to do. It helps plug the holes of DC state. So please listen to these conversations that we're having today. But I really thank you for allowing us to be here to talk about our platforms and why we deserve to not only be kind of leading the charge for DC state, but why we make the quality of life in DC that much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving now to, let's see, we'll go to Linda next since you're in the same primary, or Democratic primary. It'd be great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so very much for having me. My name is Linda L. Gray, and I am a candidate for the U.S. Representative position. I am a fifth-generation Washingtonian. I am a person who has lived long enough to know when we got homeschooled. I was in high school. I am now retired. And I don't think that I have to tell you the seriousness of our issues right now. So I am running because I'm one of you. I am also a retired high school principal. I taught 1 year at Bellevue. I retired really as a principal. I've been an assistant principal and a biology teacher. And so my concerns are all personal. I am appalled at how women are being treated. So, being that I'm the only female candidate up here, that's another reason to vote, because our issues can be solved with more women in office. I am running because this is my city. This is our city. And one of the things, one word that we need to be very careful of using over and over and over again, safe home rule, so that we continue, so that we can continue to fight for statehood. If we don't do what we need to do, flip the House and keep Democratic control in the Senate and put Joe Biden back in office, we will lose home rule. And that would be unlike anything we have ever done. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Finally, our candidate for the Republican nomination, Mr. Ivanof.
Oh, I realize I'm not exactly the most typical candidate around here. One of the reasons why I'm running is because I have seen one-party rule in other places. I came from Romania. It used to be one-party rule before democracy and after democracy. And services stopped. The government would keep on distracting people with various far-off targets. And roads were terrible, industry was bad, and things didn't work. To get a city that works, we have to focus on the basics of governance. For example, how hard is it to run a business here? Can you get housing inspections on a reliable basis? Is crime predictable? We talk a lot about statehood, but do we talk about the basics of what it takes to get police patrols in a certain neighborhood? Do we talk about how hard it is to get food inspections or who bears the cost of restaurant inspections? We don't. We focus on statehood instead of the practical nuts and bolts that it takes to have a prosperous city by ourselves and not waiting for other people to give it to us.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to have a similar opening question as what we just asked our last candidates. Again, this is a role that is kind of what you make it. So, OEA has had some time doing this job. The other contenders have some ideas. Sort of, how would you approach being DC's shadow representative? How would you, sort of take what you know and bring it into advocating for DC statehood and autonomy? Once again, we'll start with OEA to tell us how he's been doing it, and the other candidates will tell us how they've been doing it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that question. One of the reasons why I'm glad to be here in what I live in is because I share these experiences with you. While most people who are on this stage may need GPS to get here, all I really need was 15 minutes of some walking shoes, right? And the reason why that's important is because I go to the grocery store that you go to. I see what's going on in this neighborhood, and I see it in real time. Now, the way I approach what I do is leading through service. One thing in Ward A is we're tired of is politicians getting on stage and talking when they want your vote, but you don't see them until it's time for re-election. And being in Ward A, I understand that every time I go to somebody, they ask me, what have you done lately? So when we talk about going to classrooms, getting kids interested in science careers, it's because you want DC to become a tech hub. When we talk about going to Congress, talking about bipartisan bills that leave a cutout of funding to make sure DC gets what we deserve, that is actual stuff. So I want everyone to realize that this is not just my office, this is our office, because the things that you put into it makes it what it is. This is a blank canvas that we've used to elevate the work that's never been done before in this office.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll turn now to Linda, how she would approach being shadow rep.
Thank you for the question. Actually, the way I would approach this particular position is the same thing that I've been doing for the last 4 years. I am currently the vice chair of the DC Democratic Party. And one of the things that we've learned across this country is that the majority of people don't know what it means not to be a state. Once we start telling them what it means not to be a state and how we're impacted, they get it. And I am happy to tell you that we had an official vote of all Democratic state parties across this country. We had unanimous support for statehood for the District of Columbia.
Thank you very much. We will close things out with Ciprian.
I don't plan to advocate for statehood. Instead, I hope to advocate for people. Every politician who runs a city has to surround themselves with people who they know and can trust, but sometimes that breaks down over decades. So I hope to go to the Wilson Building and be the conduit from the people and the workers to the council and the mayor that sidesteps the sclerotic bureaucracy and political apparatus.
Okay, thank you very much. These questions are going to sound familiar because I have similar questions that I asked our shadow candidates, except this time we'll change up the order a little slightly and start with Linda. Very curious. Another situation, there's a law that the DC Council and the mayor have passed. Congress wants to overturn it. How would you approach that? Is there ever a situation where you would advocate for Congress to overturn a DC law? Why or why not?
There is never an opportunity that I would support Congress overturning any laws of the District of Columbia. I happened to be down at the oversight hearing on March the 7th, when that was 2 days after the council passed Secure DC. Byron Donald came right in, threw in an alternative bill, crime bill for DC. Congresswoman Luna came in, threw out our Clean Car Act. So these are the things that they do, and that's why it's important to be there. But there is never a time when I will support any interference from Congress.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Ciprian next.
There are cases in which the city council because it's so full of people who don't openly disagree with each other, jumps on a bad idea with both feet. We saw that with the 2022 criminal justice reform, and some people would argue that the secure DC bill was just the same thing. It's wild swings in policy, and that's not good. And sometimes the only way to break the groupthink in DC is to appeal to outside authority, that is Congress. Remember, this is still a federal city. And if the council runs itself as if they aren't going to be ultimately accountable, then sometimes you have to go to the people who are ultimately accountable.
All right. We'll close things out with open.
Yeah, with all due respect, my Republican friend here may have missed the at-large council debate because his role is to fight for DC state autonomy. And for a lot of his concerns or with the council and the mayor's office, perhaps he should have run for that seat. Now, in terms of my perspective on DC being oppressed by Congress, there's never a reason for our Congress to meddle with our affairs. Whether it's our laws, whether it's our needle change in the 90s, whether it was what they were trying to do today in terms of how we deal with our peaceful protesters on university campuses. We are smart enough to handle our own city. We balance our budgets each and every year. And there's no reason why folks in Congress who can't even exert this level of influence in their own districts should be able to do that here in the nation's capital. I don't think it's a coincidence that mostly Black cities over here being having our rights trampled, and I'm not going to stand for it. Whether it's going to Congress, whether it's going to their own districts themselves, telling how their elected officials are acting over here, it's important for us to stand up for ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions. Oh, I see a hand springing up. Give me one moment.
I'd like to say something to the senators that want to be senators. You know what? The thing about it is you keep talking about statehood and you talk about the federal government. DC, we can't even go to the federal government for loans. If this city goes out of this day tomorrow, the federal city won't even do anything. You have so many congressmen and senators that have been there for so long. They never voted on, nobody votes on it, they stay there. And they're racist Caucasian. All they want to do is do something to the Black and brown people, try to keep the city for themselves. And it's really ridiculous. I don't care what you all say. We're not going to have statehood because these people run the city. They run the city. And it's sad to say. But until these white Caucasians get a heart, we'll be a nation and a citizen. And everybody will be a citizen. But they run the whole city. You all can do whatever you want to do, whatever you think. But until we get to them and they get a heart, and we get these people out of office. It's a racist city here.
It's a chance to come back. Why don't we start with Oye? Maybe a way to phrase the question is, how are you going to overcome Congress who often isn't very interested in DC's interests in the time?
I share your concern. I share the sense. I hear a lot of times that, our Congress isn't diverse enough. Or even those who are diverse, not all skin folk are kinfolk, and they're not going to really see what's going on with us. That's why I went to West Virginia. That's why I went to LA. Not just to talk about why DC state matters to us, but why it can affect their lives. If you care about water security, not just Southeast Wyoming County and West Virginia, it's also Southeast Washington, DC. And having elected officials who can vote in DC can make those things happen. But now when it comes to people in DC, I'm not just here talking about why statehood just matters to people here. I'm also doing things in the community that makes people's lives better. We're talking about clearing the records of returning citizens so they can get a stable community. We're talking about young people being able to develop careers that they can have an interest in out of crime. These are things that I do in this office to increase quality of life.
Okay, move to Ciprian now.
The basic reality is that the National Democratic Party cares about DC because they hope that it'll get them another 2 senators. There's not much beyond it. And eventually, there's going to be a political realignment, and those two senators are going to become kind of new delegates. The long-term outcomes for DC kind of depend on DC's own ability to govern itself, and that takes more than just ethnic animosity or reliance on a national political party to the exclusion of all else.
All right, we'll close things out with Linda.
Actually, I appreciate your comments because that is the sentiment that I have heard for years and years and years. We have fought so long, and what they are doing to us is immoral and it is unconstitutional. But what I can do is give up hope, and I'll tell you why. I can't give up hope because I know that if we flip the Senate and if we keep Democratic control and we keep Joe Biden, we will have another shot at this. We only lost statehood by 4 votes, just 4. And that's what, and flipping the House and keeping the Senate and getting those 4 votes, that's what I'm saying. We have a lot of work to do. We have to save us. We've got to save home rule. And if we can do those 2 things, we do have another shot at this. So I can't give up hope, but I do appreciate your comments so much.
All right, thank you very much. I think we've got some online questions over here for those.
Okay, I was trying to see if she's gonna come over here. So this may be still along the lines. Statehood is a marathon, not a sprint. What is your strategy, statehood?
Okay, a strategy for statehood. We'll come back and start with Linda for this one and then down the line.
Well, my strategy is one that I'm already working. As I told you before, I'm the vice chair of the DC Democratic Party. So when we got unanimous support for DC statehood, that opened up a huge path to get to Congress. And so I'm playing connect the dots. I have that particular network established, so I can get to congressional members, I think, a lot easier. And I am available. I'm retired. So anytime there is a need to be on the Hill, I'm there. So my strategy is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm available. And let me tell you one more thing. Because of everything that's happening in this country, this particular position has not been held by a woman since 1999. I think it's time to change the flavor of the
Thank you, Linda. Moving now to Ciprian on a strategy for statehood.
I think it's obvious to say a lot of people don't trust DC. And quite aside from the political benefit of gaining a few extra senators, there's not going to be a lot of respect for DC. DC spends $35,000 per student and gets some of the worst outcomes. If you want respect on the Hill, you've got to administer yourself in a way that earns respect, not just having votes, and that takes the basics of municipal government. Eventually, DC may well become a state, but DC needs to earn it through being a well-managed city.
Okay, we'll close things out with our shadow rep.
I don't believe we in DC deserve respect from outside parties. I believe the respect for ourselves is enough. In terms of the work we're going to continue doing to achieve DC statehood, is to collaborate with organizations that align with us. I'm proud to partner with Planned Parenthood as we send DC statehood letters throughout this country, or partner with other organizations that take us to the next level. With us being past the pandemic and world being digitized, there's opportunity for young people involved in social media. They're the ones really driving things. With our cell phones, we're able to reach people that we've never been able to reach years ago. I believe that collaboration. I believe with tangible goods for people. I believe in empowering DC residents to not only strive to what we think they should get to, but to create their own avenues of success. We're helping business owners get contracts and grants from the federal government so they don't have to worry about what the council member mayor is not doing. That's what we're doing in this office, and that's what I'm proud to continue to get us forward to say that.
Okay, I think we've got time for one last question, and I see a hand in the back, so I'm going to come back to you. While I do that, we will mix things up, and we'll start with Ciprian, move to Linda, close out with Owolewa.
Okay, what I have to say is, DC started out as an escape group for Congress, the whole DC. But they got food. They turned around and crashed. And that's why Congress, really, they don't want slavery, but if we fix slavery, we're gonna have high taxes. Everything, or it's gonna be on itself. They're not gonna help us. And they have already said, and they don't care about us. We were there for one good person. That's all I want you down. DC is the murder. So, if we get stable, it's gonna come. Never come back. It's not gonna be easy. All I'm gonna say is, we've been a survivor, and we're gonna survive that too.
Well, in case you couldn't hear the question, she was just wondering, what if there are higher taxes associated with statehood? There's a lot of costs that DC would have to bring back from the federal government. How would you tackle that? We'll start with Jim.
It's almost certainly that taxes would rise. Someone throughout the $3.2 billion added money that they expect if DC becomes a state, well, most of that is new taxes, a few new subsidies. But DC would also be giving up a lot of subsidies that the federal government gives, because the federal government is going to be embarrassed if people look at DC and say that it's ugly. We in DC get money from the federal government because the federal government would be embarrassed if DC doesn't look good. But if DC is a state, a lot of that money goes away. You get a few new subsidies, you get new taxing powers, but the culture of DC Council is to simply raise taxes every time they can. So yeah, taxes are probably going to go up if DC becomes a state.
No.
Okay, so we're going to go to Linda next on this one.
Well, we don't really get money from the federal government. We're on the low end. We get like 20%. And usually that money that we get is a reimbursement for some service that we perform, which is mainly protection when we are protecting folks who come here to protest. So when we do become a state and there are federal dollars, then we have some choices we can make, because one, we won't have interference from them. So that's why I say don't give up hope. Yeah, taxes are going to be high. Our taxes are high because our incomes are high. Now, not for all of us, present company included, but our incomes are high, which is why we pay the highest taxes per capita. So it is going to be an issue, but we will get federal dollars to the state.
Thank you very much, Linda. Close now with okay.
So one thing to remember about DC, for the sake of the conversation, we are a donor state. What that means is that we give a lot more money to the federal government than we get back. So we're not freeloading, we're actually giving to many of those senators that oppose DC statehood. Now, in terms of why statehood is worth it, we have control of our resources. We have final say over our laws. We get to actually vote for judges that are in charge of sentencing our brothers and sisters to prison, and we'll actually be able to put prisons closer to DC. One of the reasons why we have a high recidivism rate is because our brothers and sisters in DC are getting shipped to Michigan, Texas, and they're not close in a family structure. So we really believe in us being empowered to make rules and regulate full control of our
Well, you might say I have private accounts.
Actually, just about do it for our candidates for shadow representative. Let's give them all a big round of applause. We are going to one last form, assuming we can get our Zoom participants to stop chiming in quick. We have our for Delegate. Come on up. Delegate.
Was coming straight at him when he hit him with the child, which would seem to mean that he dropped him.
So he wanted us to help eat himself.
Okay. This is our last panel of candidates here. Unfortunately, Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton could not be with us. She says she sends her regards. So instead, we have the two people running to take her job instead. We have far from me, Kelly Williams, who is running against Delegate Norton in the Democratic primary. And then we have Kymone Freeman, who is running for the Statehood Green Party nomination in that same race. So we're going to get reset a little bit here and kick things off. Once I get up time to Okay. So the order we're going to do things here, we're going to start with Kelly for our opening statements. As a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes for those. Kelly, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right. Thank you. My name is Kelly Michael Williams, and I am a Ward 8 resident. I am also the candidate for delegate. I'm running for Congress. And what I'd like to tell you about myself is I have 25 years of experience in the federal government, state government, local government, and I'm an ANC commissioner right now. So I've worked at every level of government. I worked in the White House. I worked at USDA as a political appointee. I was the administrator for Farm Credit, had a $99 billion budget. I then came to the district council, where I also worked with Councilman Orange. I worked at the state legislature. When I was working in federal government, I made sure that Black farmers got $800 million in the school lunch program. When I went to the state legislature, I made sure that we had comment laws in California. And when I worked here in DC, I passed a bill that allowed high school or individuals who receive their GED to be able to get their high school diploma. What I'm here to do for you is to tell you that I am #1 on the ballot, and I'm going to bring life experience to leadership to make sure that we have the services we need in DC for our citizens. As an AARP member or as a senior, I took care of my mother for 13 years. She had Alzheimer's and dementia. My mother passed away on January 11th, the day before I started this campaign. But what I did is I took care of her every day for 13 years. I picked her up, bathed her, I fed her, I clothed her. I helped her go through all the services that you guys are going through right now. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, dealing with your healthcare insurance, dealing with all those issues. I was homeless in this city. So all the things that I have had to deal with, I'm going to be a passionate, compassionate person for you to make sure that I get you the services you need from the federal government and the services that you'll need to end and have the quality of life that you want to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Turning now to Mr. Freeman, 2 minutes for opening statement.
Peace and blessings. Thank y'all for staying for the entire program. My name is Kymone Freeman, Angry Black Man in Therapy. I'm supposed to start saying that, but I want to definitely support therapy. I'm a Ward 5 resident, Ward 8 business owner. I co-founded We Act Radio 13 years ago. It's on the radical side of Martin King Avenue in Anacostia. It is underwritten by Social Security Works. Social Security Works guards Social Security from being privatized from the clutches of the GOP. It prevents it from the benefits being decreased or the age eligibility being raised. That is what funds We Act Radio. I'm here to offer the same radical policies that Martin Luther King advocated for from 66 to 68. For those who don't know, we have a monument to Martin Luther King in this city, but his words on his own quote, on his own monument, was so radical to the status quo that it was sandblasted and edited. I'm here to represent that. I got to this point because I was a disgruntled postal worker. I got fired for making anti-war statements to a congresswoman's wife, so the apropos running for Congress in that. And when my parents found out that I lost that good government job, it was like, for making anti-war statements, speaking out against the Iraq war. Remember that war they spent all the money for over a lie? They want to pretend like they didn't have it, like they're ignoring the genocide now. And guys are ignoring the genocide in Rwanda before, Congo, the list goes on. These wars are endless that we paying for. My parents said to me, maybe if you go back and apologize, they'll give you your job back. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I meant what I said. But, you know, it was probably for the best because I wasn't even happy. My parents looked at me with a straight face and said, happy? What do you mean happy? It's just a job. You're supposed to be happy. And I realized that was the intergenerational divide right there. That the people that came before me had to do things to get us to this point. And it's now up to us to take us from here to go further. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of our young people are not prepared to do that. So the last book Martin Luther King wrote was, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? I'm here to represent the radical side of Martin Luther King to make sure that we get to where we need to go, and that's the truth.
Okay, thank you, Kymone. So, I think that if Delegate Norton were here, she would probably be telling you about, how many long years she has worked as a delegate, how effective she's been, how much money and resources she's brought back to the District of Columbia. You two are running to replace her, so I guess tell me, where do you think you can succeed where she hasn't? What has she done that you would do differently? Essentially, why should the voters here choose you instead of her? Kelly, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I think the reason you would choose me is because, one, after 34 years, we can support and praise what Delegate Norton has done, but it's been 34 years. If you're fighting for statehood and you haven't gotten it by now, then you have to try something new. And say, I don't know that I'm going to get it. So that's a very good point. We just finished talking about statehood. Actually, the issues that we need to be concerned about is everyday life. We need to be concerned about the things of quality of life. We have to be concerned about whether or not your Social Security is going to get cut. We have to be concerned about whether your Medicare and Medicaid is going to get cut. We have to be concerned about whether or not your housing is going to be affordable. Those are the things that you need to be worried about and concerned about. So through the federal government, through the federal opportunity and federal agencies, being able to appropriate dollars, being able to meet with city agency heads, being able to allocate and pass legislation, that's why you should vote for me. Because I'm going to be able to do those things. I'm going to work for those things. I'm going to try those things. You can't do, the same thing over and over again and expect the same result, different results. That gives you insanity. So what we have to do is we have to try something new. We have to think outside the box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something new, think outside the box, and use the life experiences that I've had, being homeless in the city, caring for my mother, all those things to make sure I can try to do something new for you.
Thank you so much. Turning on Mr. Freeman.
As I said, I'm representing the radical side of Martin Luther King. Permission from my elders to speak. Okay. As I said, I'm representing the radical side of Martin Luther King. He said that men long regarded as political clowns have become elected officials that magic achieved by a witch's brew of bigotry, prejudice, half-truths, and whole lies. That is our Congress, and that's why we have the problems we have in this city. Now, how many of y'all think that America is a racist country? Raise your hand if you think America is a racist country. That's not everybody. Ooh. Okay, who in here think America is not a racist country? Okay, just you. Okay, the Republican, of course. All right. Well, the top black Republican, Tim Scott, agrees that America is not a racist country. Unfortunately, the top black leader in the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, also agrees with him that this is not a racist country. So the leadership of these parties are selling us out and disappointed us. And we need to go further. We have our own political party in this city that can challenge the status quo. And we should no longer accept the inequities that we have in this city. We pay the highest income taxes of any citizen in this country, and we deserve and demand more.
Thank you so much. So, as these candidates have already started to mention, the delegate to Congress doesn't get a vote, but they do have an important role nonetheless in regulating many of the federal agencies that control a lot of what DC does. The feds run our prisons, they run our local prosecutor, as someone has mentioned. It's sort of incumbent on our representative to Congress to take those agencies to task when they don't do what DC residents want. So my question for our candidates here is, what would you do if you were to become delegate to, communicate with those federal agencies, tell them these are failings? What are agencies where you really need to see, a different response for DC residents? Well, we'll start with you.
Is the system broken and needs to be fixed, or is the system fixed and needs to be broken? That's not a coincidence that this is the most dangerous city for a black woman to give birth of anywhere else in this country. And there's 2 black women running it. It's not a coincidence that there's a life expectancy difference of 20 to 30 years between a Ward 3 resident and a Ward 8 resident. It's not a coincidence that we have not yet, someone said something about why. We never asked the why. Why don't we ask about why do we have, what are the root causes of violence? Did you know that a child, an undeveloped mind, I submit that's anyone that's under 25, maybe 30 for a minute, you know it's slow, but anyone that's undeveloped mind, devoid of 4 nutrients, they are 51% more prone to violent behavior. Did you know that? Who lives in food deserts? Who has the least amount of access to healthy food? Who has the most children in the city? These are not coincidences. These are deliberate policies that are actually responsible for the results that we have, and those need to be challenged. We don't have a vote on the Hill, but we should have a voice.
Thank you very much. Turning to Kelly on this question.
So one of the things I think we can do with some of the agency heads, especially working with AARP, is making sure that we can provide and protect the home health aides that take care of a lot of our seniors. I was a home health aide for my mother, but I had to fire the home health aide that I had because she was falling asleep on the job, and my mother had 103-degree fever. So I had to take over that control. So I could lead the workforce and then take care of her full time. What I want to make sure that we do with HHS is make sure that we're protecting your rights, protecting everything that you have and what you need. So making sure that Social Security doesn't get cut from Congress, making sure that in committee we can do something about that, and making sure we also provide housing, additional housing incentives for you, to make sure that what Councilman Member White was talking about in the shadow centers and housing, for the housing vouchers, making sure that you have those things, making sure that your prescription drugs don't cost you anymore, right? We know that the Inflation Reduction Act is going to kick in next year and part of it this year. We'll make sure those things will happen. Other things that I want to do is make sure I go to HUD, because our AMI, our area median income, is based on 5 counties in Maryland and 5 counties in Virginia. It's not based on DC. Going to the Secretary of HUD and saying, look, we need to change that. We need to make sure that that runs for us here in DC, so that those in Ward 8, we can make sure we can afford to live, not based on their affordability, but based on our own affordability.
Thank you so much. Well, if you all aren't exhausted yet, one last chance for questions. Questions for our delegates to Congress? Otherwise, I'm going right back over here.
When it comes to how much money gives to the federal government, how much the federal government gives back to DC, we are one of the highest jurisdiction state, if you want to call it, that get less money than we get. Through incompetence, our city government has had to return $50 or maybe $100 billion back to the city government. So what would you do to ensure that we get maximum resources from the federal government? I'll do plus if we could, and that our city government adheres to the federal regulations that we don't have to kick any money back.
And we'll start with Kymone for this.
Very simple. I would say taxation without representation. No representation, no taxes. People are not playing with us, and we gotta stop playing with them. We gonna beg them till they feel like giving us what we deserve. How many of y'all know somebody had their foot cut off due to diabetes? I spent time in Cuba. Do you know in Cuba they have medicine that prevents diabetic amputations at all? And when I met with the U.S. ambassador there, I asked them why they won't allow those medicines in this country. He said, you know what he told me? Because they're protecting their business interests. This business interest has a profit of cutting people's foot off rather than saving your lives and giving you the free health care that you got right here that you should deserve. You know Israel gets free health care? Your taxes are paying for free health care in Israel. You don't have it here. I want to educate the political system on what could be possible rather than what is not possible. And this is our time to do something.
All right. Turning over to Kelly on the question. Yeah, the question I believe was how to make sure that DC gets its fair share of federal money. Is that right? Yes, and more.
I partially agree with him. We're supposed to have free healthcare because, quite honestly, we paid for it in our taxes. As he said, and as we all know, we pay more taxes than anybody else per capita. So we should have free healthcare, universal healthcare. That's what we should have. They have it in Congress. They get it up until the Affordable Care Act passed, and then they made them also get what we would get. Because before that, they was getting whatever they needed. And they didn't have nothing to worry about, and we were paying for it. So quite honestly, we'll just have to go after it. We have to fight for it, and we have to take it. In terms of how the city doesn't spend the money and use the money properly to get back that, we will have very little control over that because, quite honestly, that would mean that we will get involved in local government, and most residents and most of us don't want us being involved in local government. So we can't go and tell the mayor how to do it, but we can certainly try to influence that to make sure that those dollars are used for your benefit and not getting sent back to federal government. Because it makes no sense that we have the money and we lose the money because of our incompetence and inability to actually do what we're supposed to do with it, so that everyone and every citizen in the District of Columbia is serviced and gets the resources and the results that they need from that money. It's our money. You paid for it. You got it. It's our tax dollars. We should be able to use it the way we want to. So to answer the question, fight for it and use it the best way we can.
Okay, it seems like we've got another online question. I'll run over here for it.
Okay, Yvonne, go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask a two-part question. Even though we don't have.
No. You can leave her off of mute. She's asking a question. Miss Yvonne, hold on 1 second. You're gonna come off of mute again. Karen and Rudolph, don't mute her.
Okay, I even though we don't have a vote on the floor, we do have a vote in committee. And I want to know about any special skills that you would have. Because before things have to get out of committee before they even become the whole. What kind of special skills that you might have that you would use to do those things, like making sure that DC interests were taken care of? Not saying it's specifically for DC, but you know, DC values. And also, where would your office be located? The congressperson has an office in the, I can't remember what building it is, Rayburn building, but where would you strategically have offices in other places? Because the power of a congressperson is, if I'm having problems with Social Security, you can contact Social Security on my behalf. If my son is having a problem because he's in the military, you can do that. So I'm interested in the power that you will have. I landed my plane.
Okay, Kelly, why don't we start with you on this one?
Thank you very much, Ms. Yvonne. So the skills that I have is when I worked in the state legislature, and we decided to pass a helmet law for motorcycles. Once we wrote the law, then we had to go around to all the legislators, lobby them, and get them to support that bill. It was one of those bills in California that motorcyclists did not want to have. But because of so many deaths that were occurring because of accidents, we were able to pass that law. Here in DC, being able to pass the law to allow GED recipients to get their high school diploma was another thing. I introduced that bill to Councilman Orange. He then put that bill out. That bill passed, and now GED recipients are able to get their high school diploma, which they were not able to do prior to 2013. So those are the skills that I'll take to Congress. The other piece of that question I think she asked was being able to work with, I think, the agencies.
Where's your office?
Oh, where my offices be. Actually, what my plan is to have representatives in every ward. I'm actually going to have an office here in Ward 8 because I live in Ward 8, so I want to make sure we have a satellite office here. But I want to have a representative in every ward because I want to make sure that each ward has the ability to be able to get in contact with me, and then we'll have pop-up offices wherever we need to have it. So right now there's 3 offices, one in the Rayburn building, one in the Ronald Reagan building, and they closed the other office. I don't remember where that office was, but Martin Luther King. So I'll make sure that I have offices especially here in Ward 8, but satellite offices in other wards.
Okay, thank you. Kymone, same question. I think her original question was your special skills for moving things out of committee and where your office would be.
Well, first, let me say that as co-founder of We Act Radio, I had the dubious honor of giving Aaron Barry his last interview. And in that interview, he said that no one has given us anything. Everything we got, we took. And so we have to have that attitude. And if I was doing a committee, the first thing I want to propose, y'all know that Housing Urban Development HUD has a guideline that stipulates that, someone said it earlier, you shouldn't have to pay more than 30% of your income in housing, plus utilities, okay? I wanna make that not a guideline, I wanna make that a law. That should be enforced. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. Housing is a human right, so that would be the first thing in the community that I'll be fighting for. And in terms of my office, I would like to see a mobile unit to make it accessible to everybody. Can't come to us, we come to you. And that is one of the changes that we could have. And I think that the housing would be the most, the one that affects everybody and will lift everybody up.
Running out of time. Okay, excellent. Thank you. We probably have time for one last question. And one last question. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with me asking. Okay, well, you asked for it. So in that case, maybe a good way to sort of close us out is, talking about advancing DC statehood, since this is certainly something that the delegate role would do. In many cases, Delegate Norton has pushed for things like, giving DC control over its National Guard, which has come up here before. So where are the areas that you think are really important that you would focus on to it, even if we don't get full statehood, increase DC's autonomy, give us more control over, what we can do? We will start with Kymone and Kelly will get
I think we need to go back. March 31st, 1968, Martin Luther King made his last speech in Washington, D.C. It was his next last speech before he was assassinated by the government. And that speech was entitled Remaining Awake During a Great Revolution. He goes on to say in that speech that far too often people find themselves living in periods of great social change, but yet they fail to develop the new ideas and the new mental responses the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. I think we have a moment right here, a revolutionary moment right here for us to take this farther. I don't think we should be negotiating with our enemies. We need to acknowledge, but I think we are very hesitant to acknowledge who our enemies are and who our friends are. And these people are not our friends. And this is a conflict. And we must be prepared to face that conflict. And I think that one of the things that we have not done is nationalize the issue of statehood. Wherever voter suppression law rears its ugly head, DC should be there in solidarity with them to lift us all up and face that conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly.
I'm going to take it from the standpoint of, I think, drawing a blank. Our shadow senator who was up here, we all need to do it together. We got, from the city council, the mayor, the ANCs, the shadow senator, the representative, myself as the congressional representative, we need to go out and we need to go outside and we have to make sure that all these cities, all these states understand why it's important to them and why it's important to us. And once you can do that, help them understand why the taxation without representation matters. Put them in our shoes. Put them in the same position that we're in. Help them understand and see that. Right now, we have every Democratic representative in the House supporting statehood. We have 4 or 5 senators not supporting it. We need to put pressure on those 4 or 5 senators to make them support it. As Linda Gray said, those 4 or 5 are the only ones that's holding us up. And we need to put pressure on them to make sure that they don't hold us up any longer. We have to be radical in that. So I agree with Kymone in that. We have to be radical and do that. Because the truth of the matter is, no one is going to give us anything. We do have to take it. And we're going to have to take it with force. And we're going to have to take it with the ability of being able to say, this is our right, this is the Constitution, and this is what it says. No taxation without representation. So if that's the case, give us that or take away the federal taxes. We don't pay nothing. And you go on about your business.
Okay, well, how about one last round of applause for our 2 candidates for delegate? Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I expect Phil will want to send us out, but thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Let me thank our moderator, Alex Koma. So now, now when you read the Washington City paper, the Loosens column, you know who's writing.
Phil,
I made you a public target.
just a quick note. Just a quick note. I'm on the Democratic ticket, and Mr. Kymone's on the Green Party ticket. I'm number 1 on the ballot.
Okay, thank you again, Alex. Just want to remind you that next month, our chapter will be meeting at the East Bridge Pace Senior Citizen Center. And then we'll be back here for the July, August, and September meetings. Take care, God bless.
AARP meeting know that I had taken on the chairman of the bylaw committee. I just want to announce that I'm stepping aside from being the chair of the bylaw.
Can I give a phone number out?
Sure.
If anyone wants to call and leave a message about your number 1 issue, I would love to hear from you. I know we didn't get a chance to hear from everybody, but anyone that didn't stand up and let your issue be known, I would love to hear from you. Leave a message, and I give that number to you if anyone's ready to write it down. They can leave this message from today till November, okay? The number is 202. Give me a second, I'm sorry. 202-858-8851. That's 202-858-8851. What is your number 1 issue? Whether it's local, national, international, what is your issue? Or maybe you got a solution that we should be using. Let me know. Leave a message. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
And let me do the same. Let me do the same. My number, if you want my number and any issue that you have, my number is 202-540-0722. 202-540-0722. My email is KELLYMIKELFORDC@gmail.com. KELLYMIKELFORDC@gmail.com. Kelly Michael for DC@gmail.com. Thank you. 202-540-0722.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank you folks online for joining us. This concludes the recording session.